We were talking this morning how important it is that you're here, because certainly none of us had heard of this condition.
Well, that's the thing. So many people are now getting in touch on social media, through my website, and saying, you know, I've had this for 17 years, I've had this for 12 years, and I've had to have a hysterectomy, which we're going to talk about later. But it seems to be a condition that is quite prevalent, but as yet...
Remains undiagnosed.
Remains in the shadows.
So I just want to take you back to... And, in fact, I saw your comment on Twitter, actually, after Victoria, you'd got Victoria back. But, oh, my God, my heart went out to you. So just take us back to what happened.
So, yeah, she, over the past 7 years or so, since she had her first child, she's had very serious bouts of what we thought was postnatal depression. And there is probably some of that involved in it, because I'm a depressive, so I think it's probably genetic. And so we just assumed that it was postnatal depression. And then Mum started to realise that she was dreading Victoria coming on her period, because during that time, during the period time, or the 2 weeks or so before it, she would get very distressed. She'd become a different person. And then straight away, 2 or 3 days after the period, it was like that, she was back to normal again. Not normal in like a normal, but you know what I'm saying? Her regular self, exactly. And so Mum put her in touch with a consultant specialist in female hormonal and gynecological health. And that was the person who said, I really think you've got PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder.
And it all sort of came to a head a couple of weeks ago, didn't it? She was away
in Portugal.
On holiday in Portugal.
So she'd gone to Portugal with her partner and his children. And we thought that because she was now on medication, Yasmin, which is a contraceptive, but it's used sometimes for PMDD, we thought and we hoped that she would be OK, that she'd get through it. So she went sort of celebratorily, thinking, I'm going to be OK. And then it just hit at the airport. She was due to come home, and this moment of sheer panic and distress and anxiety hit. And she just fled. She fled the airport, because one of the things that's prevalent in Victoria's condition, and it's very different for every woman because it's a very case-by-case pragmatic disorder. One thing for Victoria is that she feels like she wants to crawl out of her skin and get away from wherever she is. And so she left. She dropped her passport and ran away. And we just... Our whole family just stopped, you know, our hearts stopped, and we just didn't know what to do. And so that's why I tweeted.
Because it's a real, you know, it was a real thing for you, that possibly, because with this condition, a lot of women do, unfortunately, take their lives. So you were in fear of her of her life.
We were, and you know, she's talked about suicide in the past before, so it was a real concern. And 30% of women who have PMDD will attempt suicide, which is higher than depression.
So was it the appeal, John, that you put out that led to her being, thankfully, found safe?
Well, it was actually a mixture of everything, because I put the appeal out, so all the pictures of her were all over social media. My other sister, Jane, who is just an angel, and Victoria's ex-partner, they went out to try and find her. And luckily, a stranger who lived in the apartment block where Chris, Victoria's ex, has got an apartment, saw Victoria, recognised her from the photographs and pulled her in. So if it weren't for that angel, we don't know what would have happened. You know,
because you'd also put out a video appeal, hadn't you?
We put a video appeal out, we put pictures out, and we just didn't know what to do. The Portuguese police at the airport didn't seem to want to help me over the phone. You know, and I'm not blaming
because she wasn't behaving badly, so they couldn't...
Exactly. She hadn't committed a crime, she wasn't disorderly, and so they didn't really... I don't think they understood me when I said she has a mental health condition.
Yes. Right.
So they couldn't do anything.
So, you know, when she said she dropped her passport, was that found by anybody, or...?
The police luckily picked that up. So that they had her belongings, they had her passport. So, you know, they did do us a great service in that respect.
How is she today?
Again, her period's gone now, so she seems to be back to the good old Victoria. You know, she's an amazing mother. She's a fabulous sister. I hope she's watching, because I wanted to know how much love and affection I've got for her.
Well, and Victoria, again, if you're listening, you're very much on board with us talking about this today. Because we might have the situation where somebody is sitting watching this and has a light bulb moment, because...
Well, of course. I mean, it took... I suffered severe postnatal depression after my first son, and that has continued, the clinical depression has continued to this day. So I know what you say, that it sometimes can be the spark of something. But I think it's wonderful that we're talking about this, because it took me 20 years to have somebody say to me the origin of your depression could be hormonal. It took me 20 years for that to happen.
I remember the day that you had that enlightenment on the show here. and I watched that, and I cried a bit for you because I have depression. I thought that was just such a release. I could see for you it was such a freedom.
It was such a freedom, and you wouldn't believe the response I had many years ago on this show by saying that I'd found this person who took the hormonal origin. And it's funny because it's a generational thing as well, that there's a certain thing that the least understanding people who said, pull yourself together, and we didn't have that in our day, was my granny's generation. But then again, you'd say to them years later, what happened to Auntie Vera, whatever, they'd go, she went a bit funny after the birth. You know, and that was the thing. People were put away for conditions like your wonderful sister has. People were put away.
People in my family were put away in asylums back in the day for that kind of thing. And I'm just thinking now, maybe they had PMDD.
Absolutely.
Well, this is it. This is why we're
years.
so glad that you're on. And also a shout-out for... Because listening to you there as well, you love your sister very much. It's very, very hard. You know, my husband suffers from depression, and it can be incredibly hard for those that love that are around people that are suffering it. So, you know, to all your family.
I have a statement from the doctor that you mentioned, John, who says, Dr. Elaine McQuaid, so she's a hormone specialist. PMDD can take a long time to diagnose, and in some cases even years. This is because the symptoms are similar to that of other mental health issues such as depression and bipolar disorder. This condition affects women around 2 to 3 weeks, which is hardly any respite time untreated before they come on their period, and will often suffer from anxiety, low mood, suicidal thoughts and feelings of hopelessness. Treatments on the NHS include antidepressants, contraceptive pills, and in some drastic cases, hysterectomies.
And that is exactly what Victoria wants to have now, is a hysterectomy, because she's had the Yasmin, which is a contraceptive pill, and it does help towards PMDD, but it is not for PMDD. I do believe that at the minute there is a clinical trial underway for a PMD-specific medication, but in Victoria's case, and in many other women's cases who've been in touch with me, a hysterectomy saved their life.
Yes.
Well, listen, if any of this is like ringing any bells or you've been affected in any way, go to our website and there are helplines for you there. And all of our love to you, Victoria. Now, I can't let you out of here without talking about your cooking. I've been to your cookery. Do you remember that weekend I came to your cookery school? I had the best time, the most beautiful food. A huge fan of your food. And you've brought out a new book.
I have, yeah.
Flash in the Pan.
It was out last week, so it was in the midst of all this you know, family craziness. But yeah, it's a great book. It's a really quick stovetop cookery. So every single recipe is cooked in a pan on the hob. Within 45 minutes.
Cooked in a pan on the hob. That's what we like.
Will even I be able to do them, John?
You could do it with your eyes shut.
Really?
Can I just say, I tried out one of your recipes.
No.
I did the Persian eggs. Here it is.
Ah.
Well, have you got a photo of your eggs?
I started recording it because I tasted it. I was like, You spoke about in the book, you find food therapeutic.
Completely.
Did you find that therapeutic to help you to get through when you were having your downtime?
Yeah, I do, and I still do, because I find that food is very creative. It's a creative output, and it's very, very social as well. When you cook a nice batch of brownies or you make a nice meal, you're sort of forced to share it with people.
Brings people together.
It does bring people together, and it connects me with my family. You know, my family are all really greedy.
And you did say caring for yourself is not self-indulgent, it's about self-preservation.
That's an Audre Lorde quote. So, you know, caring for yourself is not self-indulgence, it's self-preservation.
Fabulous.
And it's so true. It's so true.
My dear old dad says, food feeds the body as well as the soul.
It does.
And thank you so much. Thank you.
Can I say one more thing before I go?
Sure.
The PMDD and me are having a conference in April next year for PMDD sufferers to talk about the symptoms and how they cope. So if you do think you've got that, please have a look online for that.
Thanks, John. Lovely to see you. Lovely
Thank you.
family.
Thanks very much.